military dog tags, and the enduring strength of veterans embodied by a solid, dark concrete background in my design. The Veterans Day poster will be displayed in VA facilities, military installations, and municipal buildings across America. It will also serve as the cover of the official program of the Veterans Day commemoration at Arlington National Cemetery on November 11th. We would now like to bring up Mr. Brad Parsons from the Berlin VFW Post 1073-2 to say a few words.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for coming to this evening's Veterans Day celebration put on to you by the students of the high school and McGee students as well. And as Mr. Benigni had mentioned, this is our 17th year. The basic design of our program was to find a way to impart what the veterans in the town of Berlin had experienced in their tour of service, whether it was in the United States or abroad in combat operations. And I think we were fairly successful, and I think the fact that the students do all the research and they make the selections for the songs and music to be played and the readings that you'll hear tonight. So it's all good, and it's a great way for the future generations to learn and have an appreciation for what the veterans in this community and elsewhere have done in support of our great nation. So again, I want to thank you for coming this evening. November 11th marks the 70th year of the official celebration of Veterans Day. That legislation was signed into law by General Dwight D., our President Eisenhower, and that was in 1954. Preceding that, this was referred to as Armistice Day, designed to be an end. At the end of the World War I, it was designed to be the war that ended all wars. And just a little interesting note on the conclusion of World War I, that was our first introduction to trench warfare in an extensive fashion overseas in France and Germany. And then as well, it was the first introduction, unfortunately, to mustard gas. So that was the first chemical component to combat operations that we as Americans had experienced. So since the creation in 1954, we have sent millions more service members to fight in Vietnam, the Persian Gulf, Iraq, Afghanistan, and numerous other locations around the globe. Many more have answered the call and continue to ensure that Americans stand ready to defend our national security, our freedoms and interests. Unfortunately for us, some of the voices are starting to fade. Many of our World War II veterans are no longer with us. During World War II, 16.8 million folks served in uniform during the fight in World War II. Sadly, less than 66,000 remain living today, and there's just about 1,200 or so in the state of Connecticut. So we've lost many. Much the same for our veterans from Korea. The average age of a Korean War vet at this point is 88 years old. And so we've lost many of our Korean vets as well. But they were proud to serve, and they had a big job to do, and they did it very well. So in the future, how many others will raise their right hand in service to our nation over the next 70 years? How will they be called to defend our country? How much will they and their families sacrifice in doing so? These are questions that we can only imagine and not possibly answer. We can hope for peace, we can foster it, we can advocate for it, but we cannot stop the wheels of war. We can pray for every man and woman that they safely return healthy from their service and uninjured, but we can't guarantee it. That unknown is what demands such bravery from those who answer the call. In return for that bravery, we as a nation must commit a sacred promise to make whole those forever that are changed by service. Let the 70th Veterans Day anniversary be a reminder of what we can do and what duty and gratitude require of us. A good start would be saying thank you to our veterans that you encounter. That's a good start and something that we all should adopt. And before I go any further this evening, I'd like to ask all the veterans in the audience to please stand. So if you would put on the uniform of one of the branches of the military, I'd like to have you stand. Thank you. It's so important that we, civilians and veterans alike, promise to uphold and not let our reminder of recognizing those that go forward, raise their right hand, and serve this great nation, that we have a duty that when they return, that we look out for them and make sure they hold a special place in our heart. That's so important. While the thought of upholding a national promise might seem daunting, you're just one person. We owe it to those who serve to face the task with courage. And luckily, there are other organizations so that just one person quickly becomes an entire community. Those organizations, such as the American Legion, Veterans of Foreign Wars, and Disabled American Veterans, stand at the ready to support our veterans community when they return home after war. One responsibility that all Americans should carry is the remembrance of those who have made our freedom possible. By virtue of your attendance here this evening, you have shown appreciation for veterans. The people here are veterans, they're friends of veterans, family of veterans, co-workers of veterans, neighbors of veterans. It's up to us to ensure that every veteran believes that his or her service to this country is respected by their fellow Americans. There are many tangible ways that we can acknowledge their sacrifice, but the easiest way is simply say, thank you for your service to our country. Winston Churchill famously said, while speaking to some Royal Air Force defense folks in Britain back in 1940, his line was, never so much owed by so many to so few. Very true. So, as I mentioned previously, the same could be said of the American veterans in 2024. So in 1980, 18% of the U.S. adults were veterans. Today, it's approximately 5%. Active duty service members comprise less than 0.5%. And back in the day, it used to be 1%. That has kind of eroded over the years. Yet, Hurricane Helene, Milton, wreaked havoc across the southeastern United States. Thousands of active duty soldiers, reserve and National Guardsmen were mobilized to provide life-saving relief and recovery operation. It's estimated that about 43,000 U.S. troops, dozens of warships are deployed to the Middle East tonight. This is all in anticipation for whether it's needed or not, but the idea is they're at the ready, they're committed to go. Even the Coast Guard serves 42 different search and rescue missions daily. They facilitate the movement of $15.6 billion of goods and commodities through our maritime transportation system. All Americans benefit from the service of this small and distinguished group of volunteers who currently comprise the United States Armed Forces. So to the veterans here today, thank you. To the mothers, the fathers, the spouses, and the children of our military men and women, thank you. And to all those who show their gratitude through action, thank you. It's my privilege to recognize you. To serve you is a duty that I'm honored to uphold. So God bless you all. God bless the United States of America, and thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Parsons, for your support and partnership. At this time, we would like to invite Mayor Mark Kaczynski to present a proclamation.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. I wanted to, on behalf of the town of Berlin, of course, thank and honor all our veterans here today for their service and sacrifice to our country, and also thank your families and their sacrifice as you are off defending our country. So we really appreciate that on behalf of the council and, of course, all of us here in Berlin. I also want to thank our Berlin Veterans Commission, because I think the one thing, with Brad talking and the history, we want to make sure, past generations don't forget the history, is our beautiful park that they've put together, right, by Stop and Shop. It's unbelievable, second to none, I think, in the state and probably around the country. Of a lot of them I've seen in different states, but all the hard work that's gone into that park. As you walk around, right, you could read the little placards and learn about the history. And so it keeps that history alive. So we appreciate our Veterans Commission. And because it was such a great park, we had the next honor of getting the Gold Star Memorial there. So the only one in the state, and we're so grateful that we were able to have that in our community. So we thank them for that as well. Before I read the proclamation, I just wanted to mention a history of one veteran that I knew well. It's a World War II vet, and he served in World War II overseas. It's my father, departed now, unfortunately. So when he went into the Army, and I think he was a little bit late going in, he was a little bit older, and unfortunately, as World War II continued, as you know, it ate up a lot of manpower, fighting a lot of wars on different fronts. So by the time he went in, it was probably 1943, I'm guessing, maybe end of 43. He was a good athlete, and he played sports in New Britain High, pretty good at baseball and football. So for some strange reason, when he was drafted, they sent him to the ski troops. It was kind of the forerunner of the 10th Mountain Division. I think they were called that a little bit later in the war. I think they were the 10th Alpine Division when they started. So they sent him out to Colorado, never skied day in his life. And he was at Camp Hale, is where their training ground was, right outside of actually Vail, Colorado, which really didn't exist back then. So they trained him to ski. They trained these folks, and a lot of the folks that they had sent there were skiers. You know, a lot of them had come from different parts of the country, obviously, but I think probably because of his athletic ability, they thought he could do well, and he did. So they trained him in winter warfare and you know, shooting and skiing and all kind of different things. So when he was finished with that, as would be typical, he did get transferred. He did serve a little bit in cold weather. He went to the Aleutian Islands after he was done with his training, obviously outside of Alaska there, part of Alaska. The Japanese had invaded some of those islands there, and they sent some troops there to obviously send them home. And the islands were mostly deserted by the time our troops got there. So my dad was there. It was cold weather, right? That's what he trained for. So after the Aleutians, for whatever reason, we know the Army, the government, doesn't matter, they decided to send him to the South Pacific. He didn't really need his skis there. He didn't really need all the heavy winter gear, but that's where they sent him. So it was a little strange, and some of the other folks in his unit ended up in different places too. But a lot of the unit did get sent what they really trained for was they were training for the Nazis in Europe, specifically the Alps in northern Italy, and that's where a lot of his unit ended up, which was they had a very difficult battle there. A lot of them lost their lives, had very heavy casualties fighting in the mountains there. Mountain warfare was not easy for anyone. So my dad, you know, kind of told me a few stories, but I think like a lot of World War II vets, they didn't talk that much about it. I kind of know the general, you know, what happened, the general information about where he was and what he did. And he had a bunch of pictures and different things. So I think in the end, he was grateful that he didn't go off to the Alps, and he ended up in the Philippines. So, and he didn't really tell a lot of specifics about it. So I've told this a couple times, I think, before. So probably as a teenager, I'm in, I had to get something out of my parents' bedroom, and I went in one of their dresser drawers, and I was looking for something, and I find this. I found a rifle round in the drawer, and you know, there was my dad, as far as I knew, had no weapons in the house, didn't have any guns. I never, you know, saw any ammunition floating around anywhere. So I got what I needed, or what I think my dad needed something, and I brought this to him, and he had never told me about this. You know, I was just, what is this? So it's, you know, it's the full round, it's drilled out, so no powder in, it's not live. So he tells me the story of one night in the Philippines. He's in his foxhole, and it's late at night, and they were getting ready for some offensive in the Philippines, because as you probably know, the Philippines were, the next step was going to be Japan. Thank God for the atomic bomb, because his unit and all of those folks in the South Pacific were slated to invade Japan at some point if it didn't end like it did. So anyway, that night, you know, he was in his foxhole. They were all dug in around the area. It was in a jungle area, and so he was kind of dozing off, but he didn't want to go to sleep because the enemy was very close. The Japanese soldiers were pretty close. So he dozes off. He kind of wakes up, and there's a Japanese soldier pointing his rifle at him. So I don't know, you know, I guess in a split second, I don't, you know, who knows what really happened there, and he was lucky he had his sidearm, his .45 in his lap, and he took the first shot, and, you know, before that soldier could shoot him. So I don't know how it would have ended, but this was the round that was in the chamber of the Japanese soldier's rifle. So it's quite a story. You know, I'm guessing if I didn't find this, knowing my dad, he didn't talk much about it. If I didn't find it before he passed on, I never would know what this was. So I was kind of grateful that I found it, and he was able to tell me some of the details about it. And, you know, he made it out of there alive and came back to Connecticut and had a great life, and he was a great dad. So I was happy for that. And I was also happy to just hear that story and know, what our servicemen and folks in a combat area, you just never know what's going to happen, obviously. So that's just my little piece of history there for you folks. So with that, Brad, I'd like to read our proclamation that we have. So every year we've done a proclamation for our veterans. Each year we pause to remember the men and women who have served selflessly in America's armed forces, sacrificing a great deal, including those who made the ultimate sacrifice for our freedom and democracy. As veterans, they deserve the respect and appreciation of all our citizens. The citizens of the town of Berlin are encouraged to honor our servicemen and women, including those listed as missing in action or prisoners of war, and to remember those who have lost their lives in service to our country. So now on Veterans Day, we publicly salute these sacrifices by providing programs to pay tribute to our military veterans for all they have done and continue to do, and make the world a better and safer place, and resolved by myself, officially proclaimed November 11th, obviously Monday is Veterans Day, as our Veterans Remembrance Day in Berlin. So thank you again to all our veterans and those who have served and those who are serving. We wouldn't have our country without you, so we thank you for that. Thanks. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kaczynski. The Berlin High School Chorus and McGee Sound Express will now perform America, This Land I Love. Can we please have the McGee Middle School Patriot Pen students come forward? Conducted nationwide, this VFW-sponsored youth essay competition gives students an opportunity to write essays expressing their views on an annual patriotic theme. More than 68,000 students participated last year in this contest. This year's theme is My Voice in America's Democracy. These students have been selected by their teachers to share their work with us tonight.
In America's democracy, every voice matters. Even kids' voices are an important part because we are the future of America's democracy and the country. The best ways to make my voice heard in a democracy is to post my opinion on social media, write letters to leaders involved, and speak at town meetings. First, especially with my generation, our voices can be heard in democracy if we voice our opinions on social media for many people to see. Voicing my opinion on social media gets the message across to many people at the same time. If people see my post, this can make them aware of my point of view. This can also lead to meeting people with the same view as me, and as a group, we can amplify our voices to create more change. Also, my voice can be heard in a democracy by writing letters to leaders involved. My views and concerns on matters can reach a higher audience of more dominated people of power. With these types of people aware of my opinions and reasons, they have the ability to change things and make this community a better place. Finally, an important way that I can make my voice heard in a democracy is I can speak at town meetings. If I feel very strongly about a topic, I could attend a town meeting and voice my opinion about what I feel could be changed for a better of the community. Talking at a town meeting reaches the audience that is affected by these concerns, which means that they have a stronger opinions about these important things. With these strong opinions, we can push for these changes to be made, and if I talk at town meetings, they would hear my part of the problem and fight for it with me. In conclusion, by using my voice through social media, letters to leaders involved, and town meetings, I can make my voice heard and represented in America's democracy.
The topic of this essay, My Voice in America's Democracy. It is pretty hard to have a voice in democracy without being able to vote. It is pretty hard in general to have a voice. Let me tell you how I found mine. Growing up, I was taught to treat veterans like gold since my dad was in the military, and so I did. I would always thank Vietnam veterans for the service they never got recognition for. The military has always been a topic very close to my heart and why I care so deeply about the well-being of veterans. So now the big question, how can I make a change for veterans by using my voice? One way I can make a change is by arguing my opinion, going to a town meeting and explaining how people who protected our free land, who put our lives on the line for complete strangers, are now homeless. 41,000 of these brave men and women are fighting, but a different battle this time, explaining that every person needs a bed and meals, but especially our veterans. Another way I could spread the word about veterans is by using social media. Over the past few years, social media has become a platform we can turn to in order to find anything. About 150 million people in the US use TikTok. Knowing that number, spreading my message online wouldn't be very challenging. I could reach people who stand with me in this belief and want to make changes as well, who value the service veterans did and acknowledge their courageous work. And lastly, another way I could get my message across is by creating a fundraiser for veterans. By creating a fundraiser, I could truly contribute and donate money to other companies and businesses that have the same beliefs as me, explaining that these courageous men and women now have to beg for food and jobs. To conclude my essay, I believe that veterans should be able to lay in beds with roofs over their heads, food to eat every day. The physical ailments are reminders the veterans made for my freedom and many others, and no one should ever take that for granted.
In America's democracy, both my voice and the voice of others in my generation deserve to be heard because we are an important part in the future of the country. The best way to make my voice heard can be through engaging in community discussions, utilizing social media, and volunteering.
By engaging in community discussions like attending town meetings, I can express my opinions so that I can have an impact on the important decisions that are being made. Being involved in the discussions helps ensure that the perspectives of young individuals are represented. These conversations often provide insights into community issues, and being informed helps you have a say in what should happen. Without the ability to use my voice, decisions that greatly affect my future will be decided for me. In an era that depends on social media, being able to express my ideas in a post or video can give me a wider reach, and it'll get my point across not only my area, but other places across the world. Social media creates a space with opportunities for conversations, debates, and connecting with others who have similar views as me. It can also help young individuals feel heard while engaging in important issues. Most importantly, it can let other communities in the world be aware of the situations going on. Volunteering is another impactful way to make my voice heard in my community. Some examples are community service or hosting a fundraiser. By volunteering, I can show I care about certain issues, and it shows great leadership while helping to improve social skills. It can also connect me with other people. Hosting a fundraising event can help raise awareness in the community and can help inspire others to get involved. In conclusion, the voices of younger generations are important to the future of America. By getting involved in community discussions, using social media, and volunteering, we can make our voices heard and help bring change everywhere. With everyone having the confidence to speak up, we can create a more active and inclusive democracy, making sure everyone's opinions are valid. We are forming the future of America, so we need to be certain everyone's voices are heard.
Thank you to all of the McGee students for sharing with us how we can all be good Americans and show our appreciation for veterans. We would now like you to enjoy a video presentation prepared by students and staff at Berlin High School.
My grandfather served in the military. He was in the Air Force and he served during the Vietnam War.
My dad served in the Army before I was born.
Yes, my grandfather, Charles Nemec, he was a Marine in the military during the Vietnam War.
Yeah, my grandfather served in the Army, and my brother is currently active duty in the Army.
Yes, my cousin is active duty, and my father is retired Air Force.
My dad was a veteran. He was in the Army, and then I have a cousin who's stationed in Russia right now, and he's a Marine.
I think it's important to honor those who served in the military because they served for our country and they fought for our freedoms as Americans. And it's important to remember those who served previously and recognize those who are currently serving.
A lot of them, unfortunately, have PTSD from the war, especially my grandfather, and it really impacted him after he served in the military. So I think it's very important to honor those, to know that their service was not unrecognized, and that there are people that are at home to support them even through those hardships after they come back from wars and military serving, because a lot of things are very traumatizing on the battlefield that they get to see. So
I think it's important because those people put their lives on the line for everyone here's safety.
I think it's really important to recognize the service of many people, both who have served or are currently serving in the military, because they do a lot of things to protect our country and our freedoms that aren't recognized.
I think it's important just because they do so much for our country, and I feel like most of the time it does go unnoticed.
One thing I think that students and staff should keep in mind on Veterans Day is that not only were there people who used to serve for our country, but there are still people who are serving for our country. So it's not right just to remember those who maybe are famous or something for serving, but it's also good to recognize those who are currently serving because there are people who are still risking their lives for us.
I hope that students and staff keep in mind that each veteran is equally as important. Whatever branch they served in, it doesn't matter, is that everyone is equally important and every veteran deserves to be honored on this day.
I think that each student and staff member should thank a veteran in their personal lives for their service.
I hope they keep in mind that a simple smile or a thank you can go a long way for our veterans.
I hope students and staff on both Veterans Day and every day remember all of the sacrifices that people in the military make, and especially remember the individuals that are behind every act that keeps our freedoms secure.
In military service, loyalty means to fully support and uphold the Constitution of the United States, your unit, fellow soldiers, and leadership, demonstrating unwavering commitment by putting their well-being and mission success above your own personal interests, even in challenging situations. Essentially, bearing true faith and allegiance to the military and its values. Army Staff Sergeant Charles Bowen and Army Sergeant Ty Abel exemplifies what it means to be loyal. This story comes from the United Services Organization, USO. On a hot summer night in Wardak Province, Afghanistan, in 2019, a Special Operations U.S. Army Ranger raid force began an assault on a compound with enemy targets. As enemy fighters fired back at U.S. forces and the Rangers began to close in on a target, there was a huge explosion, injuring 3 Rangers. Amidst rounds of machine gun fire, rockets, and grenades, 2 Ranger combat medics, Army Staff Sergeant Charles Bowen and Army Sergeant Ty Abel, leapt into action to save 6 American lives that night. Pulling the critically wounded behind cover from enemy fire, Bowen and Abel quickly began performing advanced surgical techniques and providing Rangers with blood infusions with supplies they had on hand. While the medics stabilized some of the injured, unfortunately, 2 of the injured Rangers were losing blood, and fast. Unfortunately, Bowen and Abel had already utilized all of their blood units for other injured service members. Knowing that this was a life or death matter, the 2 medics decided to attempt the Ranger Olo Rolo Titer protocol, in which a volunteer transfers his or her blood to the injured Ranger on the battlefield with the assistance and equipment from the medics. The procedure at that time was relatively new and had never been done in the middle of combat, but Bowen, Abel, and a volunteer blood donor were able to pull it off. As enemy fire continued to rage overhead, the 3 worked quickly to transfer large quantities of blood from their volunteer to 2 injured Rangers, effectively saving their lives. Throughout the procedure and other life-saving techniques, the 2
in a significant way. The project, housed at the U.S. Library of Congress in Washington, D.C., collects and preserves the video interviews, photographs, and documents of veterans from World War I through Afghanistan and Iraq. As an archive partner with the Library of Congress, Central Connecticut State University participates in the Veterans History Project by collecting the oral histories of Connecticut's residents. Videotaped interviews of Connecticut service members are archived along with digitized photographs, military documents, field maps, journals, letters, and other artifacts. The vast amount of historical data is collected and made available to veterans, students, scholars, and researchers via the internet at our website. All information is also preserved in the Library of Congress. The Central Veterans History Project is working on designing digital tools that will make its archive more useful and accessible for researchers, students, veterans, and families. Hopefully, these types of projects will ensure that veteran stories will never be forgotten.
Four-legged fighters. They may not have actual boots on the ground, but you'll find the U.S. military working dogs serving wherever American troops go. They are as lovable as they are loyal, but make no mistake, these are highly skilled warriors, trained by the best to serve alongside them. Dogs didn't have an official role in the U.S. military until the creation of the Army Canine Corps in 1942, but they've joined American troops in the battles since the nation's earliest days, and many are still remembered today for their acts of canine courage. We would like to share a few of these stories with you tonight. Gabe. Not all military working dogs in recent history have fancy pedigrees. One heroic pooch from Operation Iraqi Freedom, Gabe, was a pound puppy before he was adopted and trained for military service. Just weeks after completing training in 2006 with his handler, Army Staff Sergeant Chuck Shuck, the two deployed to Iraq, where Gabe sniffed out insurgent explosives, ammunition, and other weapons. He was exceptionally productive, racking up 26 finds during his 170 combat patrols. Gabe returned home laden with accolades, and Shuck adopted him when he retired. Even then, Gabe worked on behalf of the nation, visiting with kids and wounded soldiers in hospitals. The American Humane Organization named him its Hero Dog of 2012, a distinction that came with $15,000 for the charity of his choice, the U.S. War Dogs Association. Luca, a Marine Corps explosive detection dog. Luca served deployments in his Iraq and Afghanistan during her 6-year career, leading nearly 400 patrols and identifying about 40 improvised explosive devices. Not a single Marine was injured while following the half-German Shepherd, half-Belgian Malinois. But on March 23, 2012, Luca was, while leading a patrol in Afghanistan with her handler, shortly after she found an IED, another device detonated, badly injuring Luca. Her handler applied a tourniquet, and she was quickly medevaced for advanced treatment. She survived, but she lost her front left leg. Luca was medically retired, but quickly adjusted to life with her 3 limbs in a new home with her original handler. In 2016, she became the first U.S. military working dog to receive the Dickin Medal for Animal Valor. Overall, their loyalty, intelligence, and unique abilities make them invaluable assets in military operations.
Good evening, everyone. On behalf of our music department, I certainly want to thank all of our veterans who are here in attendance this evening. As we perform the Armed Forces, the Pride of America medley, you'll hear the service songs for each of our branches of military. We invite you to please stand when you hear your service song, and I believe there's a song sheet out there as well, so we invite everyone to sing along with us as we perform for you. Thank you again for your service. The United States Army. The United States Marines. The United States Navy. The United States Coast Guard. The United States Air Force.
As we conclude tonight's program, we would like to acknowledge all of the different people who helped make tonight's night possible. We want to thank Mr. Benigni, Ms. Batista, Mr. Boyle, Mr. Dresco, Ms. Terlecki, Mr. Smith and his AV team, custodial staff, Wendy Rawlings, Mr. Brad Parsons, Mr. Anthony Gagliardi, Mr. Kaczynski, Ms. Tina Doyle, McGee administration, and teachers. We also want to thank all of the attending veterans here today and the veterans who are watching at home for your service and dedication to our great nation. Have a wonderful evening and please drive home safely.